Take my word for it. I live there. Come to Florida. Get pre-approved right now with my guy Michael Kotze. Call him at 561-441-2730. He's got Choice Mortgage and a great real estate team. Get pre-approved right now. Michael Kotze, 561-441-2730. Buy in Florida right now. Don't wait. Save money on state taxes. Make your move today with Choice Mortgage. Trust me, Florida is waiting. This guy's so good, he did my commercials in Florida too. Mike Kotze, 561-441-2730. A ride.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. So Netflix is basically Santa this year. 2 NFL games on Christmas Day, streaming live. At 1 p.m. Eastern, it's Cowboys, Commanders. Then at 4:30, you've got Lions, Vikings. Midwest football, playoff stakes, and probably some snow. Watching holiday football is a tradition the whole family can enjoy. Open some gifts, grab some food, settle in, and watch NFL Live on Netflix this Christmas Day.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And the Dr. Sky Experience, proudly and very proud, ladies and gentlemen, to be here with you as we move through your evening in other parts of the world, or your morning, as we continue, as we like to call it, Theater of the Mind, discussing many great subjects, not only from the realms of science, astronomy, space, aviation, weather, celebrity guests, and stories of American exceptionalism. What could be more important than wishing you and yours the most Merry Christmas and a safe and healthy and happy New Year 2026. If you look at the calendar and you look at the clock, Christmas begins 4 days, 1 hour, 53 minutes, and some 45 seconds from now. If you haven't completed your shopping, you know there might be a mad rush to do that. As always, ladies and gentlemen, these particular shows, we call them the Dr. Sky Experience for good reason, as we talk about subjects that everybody out there within the sound of my voice, they obviously have an opinion, but many tell us that they enjoy the content. But to be part of the radio show, always, what's more important than you, the listeners? 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222 is the gateway to get in on the conversation. Not to be overly repetitive, but the 4 types of conversation. There's debate, discourse, dialogue, and diatribe. We, of course, like dialogue, and we certainly appreciate that in critical thinking. And all we ask the vast audience of Talk Radio 77 WABC is that we at least try to stay on measure with questions to the many special guests that we get. Email me, drsky@wabcradio.com. And always to listen to so many of the previous iterations of the Dr. Sky Experience and all those great hosts that appear here 24/7. It's simply wabcradio.com or redappleaudionetworks.com. And thanking once again, we'll continue to always do that, our helmsmen, both Tony and Bill, who navigate this starship's powerful signal at 77 WABC, and I'm sure even out to the cosmos and beyond. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we believe we have an exciting show for you with great guests as we think more into the season of the holiday here, Hanukkah, Christmas, the New Year. And let's go right to it. The ever-popular holiday classic, It's a Wonderful Life, has one of its messages about miracles, the divine intervention of an angel. And at this time of year, many people wonder about miracles and the power of prayer. And many seek answers, and they may not easily get those answers. And we hope that this show, ladies and gentlemen, provides some answers that many are seeking. But who and what are we talking about? In these 2 hours, we have a surprise guest at the bottom portion of hour number 2. But right now, here's the question that we pose to the audience. Is the soul more than biology? How one mother and her neurologically injured son are challenging modern science. The book, A Story of Hope for the Outcast, the Broken, and Those Who Lost Faith, is a memoir co-written by Katie Asher and her severely injured, neurologically injured autistic son, Houston. What began as a family struggle with disability has become one of the most talked about and scientifically examined cases at the intersection of neuroscience, consciousness, and faith. The core of the Book of Heaven, is not a scientific paper. It's a deeply human story about a boy whose neurological injury left him trapped in his own body, yet able to describe spiritual realities and spiritual truths he had never been exposed to before. This book and archive blends rigorous scientific research, first-hand testimony, neurological and physiological analysis, and the spiritual insights Houston shared despite being unable to speak. Readers in more than 7 countries have written to say that this book has changed their lives. And ladies and gentlemen, also joining us here on the Dr. Sky Experience is another radio host that talks so much about these very subjects. And his name is Richard Dugan. He's the host of the popular podcast, Tell Me Your Story, and radio show known for exploring personal growth, new paradigms, and rehumanizing workplaces. But his own story is one of overcoming significant challenges, including legal blindness from birth, finding purpose in radio for the visually impaired, and experiencing life-altering vision surgery that enabled him to learn how to drive, all while championing conscious leadership and living a meaningful life. With that, let's say good morning to our very 2 special guests. Good morning to Katie, and good morning to Richard. I hope we have you on the line. And a Merry Christmas to both of you. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning.
Thank you so
Merry
much
Christmas.
for having me. Yes, and it's great to talk to you too, Richard.
Well,
Thank
I appreciate both of you. And let me just, set the stage on this. Richard Dugan has appeared here a number of times, a good friend of mine over the years, hosting his own radio shows on the West Coast. But Richard, you and I have come to know each other for about 30, 40 years almost, and you get more into the spiritual and into some of the subjects like the one we're talking about. So welcome again. And Katie, again, this is so fascinating to hear this story because like I said before in the opening portion of the show, the story of miracles, like the movie, a classic, right? It's a Wonderful Life, the divine intervention of an angel. At this time, don't you both think that we need more of this in the spiritual sense and to understand maybe we don't have all the answers in science? But Katie, let's begin with you and talk about your story as we delve into this with your son. Fascinating story. Please continue and tell us your background and the whole reason for writing this.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm just thrilled to be here and share our story. So my story began with what you would consider a traditional American upbringing in the South, conservative. I grew up, I'm Gen X, so of course I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and it was actually a pretty traumatic childhood. I was just struggling throughout that whole time, having a faith in God, a really deep, profound faith, but in an abusive childhood, and so I was really struggling to live my faith in those sets of circumstances. And during that time, there was one verse that I really clung to, and that is Romans 8:28, which says that for all things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. And so my mindset during all that time was, no matter what horrible thing happened, God said he was going to use it for good. And so it was like a hope, right? Like that's what a hope is. It's something you cling to.
It's something to hold on to tightly, you bet.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So whenever your circumstances say something totally different, you hold on to that hope, no matter what. And that's what I did throughout all those years. And when I left home right after I turned 18, I was a good student, so my thought was I was going to save myself through education, right? That was the winning ticket for me, right? Just be a good student, go get yourself a new life. And there was trauma in college as well. I experienced pretty severe sexual assault, and that really broke my heart.
Horrible.
And and that, of course, what people don't realize about that type of experience is you lose who you are. You don't really connect with the person that you used to be. And so I was quite lost. And it was during that time that I had an unplanned pregnancy and was forced to marry this man that was really just not a good person. And I knew that.
How sad, right? You bet.
Yeah. And that is where the story begins, because whenever my daughter was born, everything changed. Instead of living a life for myself, I just wanted to live a life for her. And shortly after that, I was actually, she was only 5.5 months old. I became pregnant again and didn't even realize it. And when I became pregnant, and you get morning sickness, and I'm like, could this possibly be? Like, no way.
Yes.
And sure enough, I was pregnant. And what was the strangest thing happened, though, when I got that pregnancy test and I saw it was positive, without any conscious thought, I was crawling on the floor because I was so nauseous. And I leaped up with complete joy in my soul. And I remember being shocked by it and thinking, what was that? Like, exactly. Why did I do that?
That's very unusual.
And it was it was if my spirit knew something that my conscious mind didn't know. As if my spirit was expecting this and excited, overjoyed with this news, with this incredible arrival. And so my son was born. That's Houston. And he was perfect. Just couldn't stop smiling. He was absolutely gorgeous. And when he was 8 months old, we had the DTP Hib shot. And within 5 days, we were in the hospital for a severe vaccine injury.
Oh, so sorry to hear that. Wow. And can you define that a little better, Katie, for people who may not know what that shot is? I mean, any parent that has gone through the experience of autism, I'm sure they're well aware, but define that better if you can. I mean, not being a medical doctor yourself. Tell us more about what that is. That's interesting to hear. That particular shot is actually the precursor to the DTaP shot, but what's in it is diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis. Yes. And then the whole Hib, but the particular collection of diseases that they put in this vaccine is not an attenuated virus, which means it's a live cell virus. This is actually the one that Big Pharma was granted immunity for. It was because of the DTP Hib shot, and there were so many injuries, and that's why they were actually given immunity, because they said they couldn't make it safe. Mm-hmm. That was the whole reason why. Interesting, as we talk about vaccines and other shows, Katie, and Richard knows this. I mean, here, not to attack that and change the subject, but in case you're just joining us, ladies and gentlemen, a very interesting 2 hours, in my opinion, and I hope you would agree. Your questions and comments about the content we're talking about. We're speaking with the co-author, Katie Asher, and her son, an individual, ladies and gentlemen, that unless you know about autism and what happens, here's a story of a young man, this beloved son, Houston, who we're going to share this experience with our audience out there to talk about. The question is the soul more than biology? And your story goes off the charts because Katie, many, many medical doctors are now looking into your book saying, wow, there's something here that defies the story of biology. It goes more into this introspective part of the unknown. But let's get Richard Dugan involved in this. Richard, share with the audience with you, if you would, just a little bit about the kind of experiences and the people that you interview, because I want to let the audience get in on this and the subject matter, and also have you first explain some of the topics that you cover. And I appreciate you. Go ahead, Richard.
Well, sure. And by the way, thank you so much for having both your guest and myself on the program. First of all, a miracle is an extraordinary and surprising or wonderful event that seems to defy natural laws and is often attributed to divine intervention or simply a remarkable achievement. Now, many people use the word coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in coincidences. And is there a divine hand in that? When I look back at my life and the people that I've interviewed over the years, before and after my lens implant that allowed me to drive, and by the way, when I was driving with my wife to Santa Barbara, where we lived back in 2006, it was almost as if I was consciously aware of driving. But it wasn't until we hit L.A. traffic, I think it was maybe the 10 heading into L.A. or the 134, and I suddenly looked around. I was looking at all of the other cars going, oh, my God, I'm actually driving in Los Angeles traffic. it was an awe-inspiring moment. The people that I talk with who talk about miracles, talk about these extraordinary events, there's one person, at least as far as the literature is concerned, whose life was surrounded by them, but it wasn't a big deal because that's just the way his life was. And I'm speaking, of course, of Yeshua. And people were in awe. He was raising the dead. He was healing the sick. He was making the blind to see, the deaf to hear, et cetera, et cetera. But there's one miracle that many of my guests talk about, and we discuss this ad infinitum on these programs. And that is the one that Jesus spoke of to his disciples who wanted to have him teach them how to turn water into wine, to raise the dead. He says, that? Oh, no problem.
Right. Not an easy process by any means in conventional modern day world.
But, right. But he told them, he finished that statement by basically saying, I paraphrase, I'm not King Jimmy here, that's nothing. You guys are going to do greater works. And I'll tell you what I believe the greater works is. The transforming of our lives. What your guest is talking about, as well as my guests on my program, Tell Me Your Story, is the moving out of the unconscious, if you will, just going through the motions day to day and beginning to find their life's purpose and goal.
Well, Richard, you say it so well here, and in the short time we have here, I just want to remind folks out there, if you're looking at a focus in this particular show, we're talking about a number of subjects. Do you believe in miracles? Has one happened to you? And as we continue to talk with Katie Asher, a book that literally, ladies and gentlemen, is kind of interesting. It's not just about something, how do I say this, that's inexplainable or unexplainable. The title of the Book of Heaven, a story of hope for the outcast, the broken, and those lost who had lost faith. But the question we pose out there is the soul more than biology, and science is learning so much more. But really, truly, your story, Katie, about your son Houston, I mean, this is just totally incredible. So we want to encourage people, if you've got questions, and if anybody out there, I mean, the vast audience that we have, who has lived with the situation of autism in a child or a family member, obviously sharing experiences here so everybody can get the help that they need during this particular holiday season, correct? So, Katie, the number here for everybody to call is 1-800-848-9222. But, Katie Asher, please continue. Your story is most amazing about Houston. Let's pick it up with your son, and let's talk about some of the things that you found so incredible about his situation.
Sure thing. Like I was saying, he had this severe vaccine injury, but we didn't know what that meant because that was 1997. He was still an infant. The first thing I ever noticed that was going wrong was he wasn't able to clap his hands and play patty cake anymore.
Yes.
And then he couldn't roll a ball, and then he couldn't look at me. And so it was as if he was regressing in front of me. And the next set of immunizations that I did not want him to have, but the pediatrician insisted that it was a fluke, that he had that reaction before. And so he became progressively even more despondent and regressive and seemed to disappear right in front of us. And for those who don't understand what severe autism and regression looks like, it looks like never being able to sleep. It looks like spinning things, grotesque chronic diarrhea.
Oh, gosh. Horrible.
Making screaming, horrible noises, putting his hands on his ears, squinting, running away, wanting to be naked, constantly eating and drinking everything, smearing feces, running away, be eloping, constantly running to bodies of water to throw himself into bodies of water, obsessing and stimming over everything, massive amounts of destruction that just didn't even make sense. OCD on all types of on all types of objects or activities. And but you couldn't reach him. He was completely unreachable. And that's what happened to my son. And it was like this one parent described it as if your child is stolen in the middle of the night. and all that's left is this bewildered
and locked
body.
in their body. Would that be an appropriate description? I mean, it's a horrible situation.
It's very appropriate.
Hear that. And again, I don't have children, so everything you're telling me here, I mean, to the vast audience here on, 77 WABC, I'm sure so many parents with their loving kindness have, worked with their children. And apparently some of the research that I've done here, 1 in 68 children have autism. And they say that this disorder, I mean, that's a word that they're using, is roughly 5 times more likely to affect boys than girls. It's called a spectrum disorder because it encompasses a handful of related conditions, all of which may, as you described, so detailed that, obviously in different ways, ranging from mild to severe. But the whole purpose of this, and again, my heart goes out to you and to every parent out there, that the focus of the show, though, is to talk about the book title, The Book of Heaven,
The miracle.
and bringing this whole thing together. I mean, it's so amazing. So we're going to fast forward here. We only have a few more minutes before the hard break, but I want you, please, Katie, to explain I call it a miracle. I mean, the things that your son, even though, as we say, I don't like the term, locked in the body, there's so many things that tell us. I mean, it's incredible, your story about his ability to perceive things that most of us have no idea how to perceive, and science can't explain it. Tell us more.
That was basically our life for 17 years. And it was what I would consider just a hellish existence. And Houston was the second of my 5 children, and I ended up as a single mom. And so it was a very, very hopeless life that we were living. And when he was 17, there was this one moment, a miraculous moment, where he came down and sat at my feet one evening, and which he never did. And he tugged at the blanket, which was also something very unusual. And he spoke. And he said, "Mama." And he had never spoken my name before.
Amazing. Totally amazing.
And I opened my eyes, and he was looking directly into my eyes, and he said, "I love you," in a totally normal voice. And so when you wait 17 years for your child to say your name and say they love you, it radically shifts your mindset. And so in that moment,
I mean, that brings tears. That brings tears to any parent, and it's just amazing. Yeah. But not to steal away from the emotional part of this, and that's a beautiful story so far of what's going on now. A child that's not able to speak does say that, and I love you. Very powerful. But simply this, Katie, as we've been repeating, and not to be overly repetitive, is the soul more than biology, and
part of it is. Yes, and the reason why that's important is because that was the first glimpse that he was in there, that he was not, as all the experts had told me, severely intellectually disabled, but that he was actually in there. It was the very first glimpse that he was in there, and that he was not his body, that he was actually a boy, a young man. And it was when he was 21 that we first began the process of teaching him to spell and coaching his motor to begin to point to letters. And what that revealed to us when he points to letters to communicate, and the very first thing I learned him say independently was an answer to the question, if you could put any slogan on a T-shirt, what would it be? And he spelled out, "I'm in here." And that was when the window opened. What I learned after that was I was doing all these lessons with him, and it didn't matter what the lesson was, no matter how much I asked him, he started spelling out the whole Declaration of Independence and just doing integrals and calculus, which he'd never been taught anything but single-digit addition in a self-contained classroom. And when he did that, I began to ask questions. Where is this information coming from? Right?
That is amazing.
And that's where
what you're saying, Katie, is
the miracle began to open up.
Folks, we have to go to a break, and I'm sorry to cut off our special guest here, as everybody out there, of course, has, I'm sure, questions and comments. 1-800-848-9222. We continue on the other side in just a moment with more from our good friend Richard Dugan of Tell Me Your Story. I'm sure he has many questions for Katie, as I hope you do, ladies and gentlemen, about miracles, especially during this time in the holiday season. Remember, of course, the classic It's a Wonderful Life has one of its main messages about miracles, the divine intervention of an angel. And not only in my opinion, but this time of year, we wonder about miracles and the power of prayer as we continue on the Dr. Sky Experience, days away from Christmas and a brand new year, wishing each and every one of you the best for that holiday season and a great, healthy, happy, and prosperous 2026. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other as though everything is a miracle. An amazing quote from one of the great scientists of days gone by, Albert Einstein. 32 minutes after the hour, our sincere wish to each and every one of you here with the WABC family is a wonderful Christmas holiday, a beautiful and sacred Hanukkah, and a sincere, beautiful, healthy, and happy 2026, which is just days away, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just joining us on the Dr. Sky Experience, we're talking about things that, ladies and gentlemen, have really no scientific answer, at least at this point in time. Our special guest, among others, is Katie Asher. She's the author, with her son Houston, a book of heaven, a story of hope for the outcast, the broken, and those who've lost faith. And also joining us is radio host Richard Dugan of Tell Me Your Story. Well, thank you both for being here. I do appreciate you. Richard, I'm sure you have some questions for Katie on this subject because of your extensive background. Why don't you fire away first, because I know she's going to build up to the story, which I find most incredible.
Well, I'm curious, Katie, as to when you felt that you were starting to experience miracles, and what was your definition, maybe before and or after?
I would say before. I probably didn't believe in them because I had never experienced one. And it wasn't that I didn't believe they were in the Bible. Of course they were in the Bible, but it seemed like they were very much a cessationist type of view where those things don't happen anymore. And that was not what I ended up experiencing in my life personally, because when my son was able to begin spelling and then he starts pouring out all this treasure trove of knowledge and insight, and I don't know how he came to this knowledge since he was never formally educated. And I asked him, how do you know so much? And he spelled out, I'm special. And I'm like, oh, of course you are. And he's like, whatever. Yes. But he said, I can hear thoughts. And I was like, what? Like, that's not possible, right? Of course that's not possible. You can't hear thoughts. And that was the very beginning. So I started testing him over and over and over again. And he not only got every single test correct, but when I even started asking him questions with my own thoughts without speaking them, he was able to answer them and spell out the response on the letterboard without any words even being spoken. And that was just the beginning.
That's amazing. 1-800-848-9222, ladies and gentlemen, to get in on the conversation, as I should say more appropriately. This is a fascinating subject because, once again, many in science seem to have all the answers, but, ladies and gentlemen, is the soul more than biology? And our experiences, as these two individuals are talking about today, I think, are very much monumental. You know, I wanted to ask you, Katie, this is something interesting, not to attack the world of vaccines here, but so many people are talking about so many of the horrible things that are in all of these vaccines, the adjuvants and all these other things. And as you're talking about, without me putting words in your mouth, potentially a precursor to the situation that your son has had. I mean, without a doubt, no doubt, right?
It absolutely is the reason why I shouldn't say the vaccine gave him these gifts. What it did was it interfered with neural development so that he maintained the state that we all come into life with, which is that when we come into this world as infants, we don't have any motor. Motor is something that develops over time. And we come in with massive amounts of sensory synapses, and we're a soul in a body, and we're learning where our soul is in relationship to our environment and where the rest of our body is. Like trying to find your hand as a baby, that's like one of the first things you learn, and trying to pick up your head. And because of that neural injury that neurological injury that essentially caused inflammation that prevented more motor from developing, he stayed in that infant state of being able to perceive the spiritual realm. And this is why little kids are, how little kids will see things that the rest of us don't see. And we're like, you're crazy. And they're like, oh, well, clearly you're crazy because I see it.
Well, you're so right, Katie. And I want to just describe your book to the listeners out there. I mean, the book is available where Amazon and every good place that you can get a book. But let the audience know this. I mean, this is not a short book, and not to attack the length of a book. It has so much information in there. That's why you're at least some 500 plus pages. Am I correct? Of great information.
That is
your story and
correct.
Your son's story. Right. So how do they get it? I mean, Amazon, everywhere you can get where good books are, of course. That's interesting.
Clearly, if you write a book and say that your child can hear thoughts, you need to do the research to explain how on earth that's even possible. And that's what I was doing, was trying to explain both the spiritual and the scientific and show how those two connect, how the spiritual affects the physical.
That's amazing. Let me go out on a limb here. I mean, I don't know enough about this. I'm not a medical doctor, nor do I try to be one. But the connection between Tylenol and autism, I mean, I'm sure you've studied this much better. Can you give us any kind of information, in your opinion, of exactly that whole side of the story? I mean, some say that there is no causation. Some say that there is. But would you be willing to just comment on that? I think it's important for the entire audience to hear that.
This isn't something that any one of us regular moms came up with. This was Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Mount Sinai. They're the ones who've actually done this research. And what Tylenol does is it lowers your glutathione levels, which makes it more difficult for your body to defend yourself and to remove toxins. That's what it does. It's proven. It's not even debatable. It's actually very well established scientific fact.
Well, fans of the Dr. Sky Experience, back, I believe it was June or July, I'd have to check my records, we had a young lady who wrote an extensive book on the history of vaccines, and I've never seen, and she was amazing, and from Switzerland, a most amazing guest talking about all the different varieties of vaccines. And now, not to put words in your mouth or to Richard Dugan, so many people are regretting, and I'm putting it mildly, the whole experience with the COVID vaccines as being extremely dangerous to causation afterwards. I mean, look at some of the horrible things. Richard, you've studied this. I mean, respond back on that. I mean, this whole thing about these vaccines, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of them, but go ahead, Richard.
Well, maybe when the vaccines first came out 100 or 150 or more years ago, they probably did accomplish what they were set out to do. Oh, yeah, but I'm talking
about recently, right, recently.
I understand that. And unfortunately, and again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so my observation would be follow the money. That's really the bottom line. Follow the money. If there is not a problem, and as a one who deals in computers all the time, if there is no problem, there will be a company that will create a problem that they will have the solution that you must pay for to fix. Y2K is a prime example. So I would say in this day and age, it is time to return to the natural world. That nature is our greatest teacher. We will find our answers there. So to your question, do I believe in vaccines? When the last time I had a flu shot was probably 30 or 40 years ago. I'm 65 and I haven't been sick at all for the last 30 years.
Well, that's an interesting testimonial from Richard Dugan. But going back to Katie, this is interesting, Katie, more specifically about this experience in the book with your son. This is fascinating, ladies and gentlemen. If you're a dog lover or an animal lover, Katie, what I found in the part 2 about your son, Houston, in his own testimony, I find it fascinating. Talk about this with the dogs, because I myself, we have one, a beautiful little Bichon that's called Aurora. And everybody out there who has a dog or a cat, but what's the connection between your son and dogs? I find this amazing. Let's hear that.
I know. I did too. I didn't understand why dogs seemed to completely just go nuts over my son. And when I finally was asking him, he said, they can see I am someone close to God. Mm-hmm. And the dogs have that same kind of spiritual sight. that a lot of these who've experienced these vaccine injuries, or even children who still see in the spirit. And what's interesting, it even talks about that in the Bible. It says, unless you have the faith of a child, and the child just sees and believes. They see.
Yes.
And that's the kind of trust that we're supposed to have, which, going back to, that verse in the beginning, the Romans 8:28, just clinging to that hope that God would bring good from all of this. Never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined that God could bring something good from the hell that we were living with severe autism. And yet he did something so completely more profound and miraculous than anything I could even imagine, which is what Ephesians 3:20 says.
It's amazing. In our own personal experience with the dog, you just sit there and the dog looks at you and it's like it knows something. It's like almost what, Katie and Richard, it's like the dog knows something. It's like it can see in different spectral lights. It can see and sense things. And, that's why animals, to me, they're so important, whether it be a horse, a goat, a cow. And I certainly, not on a different subject, how anybody could be unkind to a poor animal. But the connection that we're talking about is, let's say, a dog and what your son's experiences. So imagine what they can see. If only we could figure that out. And maybe one day, right, Katie, we'll be able to understand the connection that a dog has. Yeah, It's amazing.
One of the scientists, Rupert Sheldrake, he's done a lot of work on the fact that recognizing that these animals that are close to us can sense when we're coming home. They can hear thoughts too, just like my son can. And what that means is that that we have a spirit that's connected to other spirits, that is connected emotionally and in a spiritual way that's beyond anything tangible in the physical world.
No, it's amazing that you say that because, our lives run by the sun, as I talk in the science and astronomy area. Of course, we all know that. We're busy doing our things. But according to what we know from the universe, we only see a tiny, tiny spectral area on that whole percentage. Like we only experience 4% of the entire universe that's out there through our own senses, through what we hear here. And the rest of that 96%, that's amazing stuff. But we're going to go to that break, ladies and gentlemen. Our very special guest is Katie Asher, her and her son Houston, a book called A Book of Heaven, a story of hope for the outcast, the broken, and for those who lost faith. And also a good friend of ours, Richard Dugan, a radio host of Tell Me Your Story. And ladies and gentlemen, we have Lauren from New Jersey calling in and many, many other people at 1-800-848-9222. We will be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Miracles happen every day. Change your perception of what a miracle is, and you'll see them all around you. A quote from rocker John Bon Jovi. 47 minutes after the hour, we're joined by two special guests, Katie Asher and her son, written a book, of course, The Book of Heaven, a story of hope for the outcast, the broken, and for those who lost faith, and radio host Richard Dugan of Tell Me Your Story. Let's go to the phone lines. People have been patient. Let's say good morning to Lauren in New Jersey. Lauren, happy holidays. Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. The same to all of you. Thank you, Dr. Sky, for your fabulous shows and for your wonderful guests this evening.
Thank you.
Or should I say early morning?
Yes, absolutely. Good morning.
Yes. I think I speak for many, many people that I can't wait to get my hands on Katie's book, The Book of Heaven. And I'd like to ask her, has your son, Houston, have you asked him, have you spoken about who is God? What is God? Where did God come from?
Wow.
How did this creation begin? Where did it come from? And has he been to heaven? And what is life? What is the meaning and purpose of life? And because we are going on to something amazing, I know it. I've experienced miracles in my life that there's no explanation for them other than that. I don't want to get into that. I'd like to listen to Katie. I'll stay
Absolutely.
on the line. But
yeah, beautiful. Beautiful story there, Lauren. Katie, go right ahead. This is powerful stuff.
It is. Unfortunately, you asked every single question that we answered in the book. So the good news is I will do a brief response, but all the detail is in the book. And yes, he did go to heaven. What was so incredible was, here is my son trapped in his body for over 2 decades. And when he started spelling and communicating, he starts describing heaven and passages of scripture that he had never read. Specific details. So confirming the veracity of scripture and all of the promises of God and the wonder of God. And he says that God is easy to see in some ways, but greater and more beautiful than anything you can comprehend. And that his all being is love. And that he's and I remember him saying, one of the main things in heaven is the making of new chances to give us. And I was sitting there and I was like, wait a second. And I suddenly realized that it says in scripture, his mercies are new every morning. And it's just right. And this is just one tiny thing. And he said that when you see how holy God is, you realize you don't want any sin on you.
Amazing stuff. Lauren, you get the last word on this because you brought up some very, very powerful things. You kind of summarized, I guess, a whole radio show in just maybe a minute. So there you go. Lauren, please continue.
I would. Yes, I will definitely, Katie, and your other guests. I'll hang up and just continue listening. Dr. Sky, thank you again, and thank you, Katie, and thank you to your son. And I can only imagine what you've been through with him. But wow, what a beautiful, unbelievable, heavenly experience that you and your family are having now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren, for being part of the Dr. Sky experience. Let's continue with the callers as we move to the top of hour number 1. See, Katie and Richard, how quick time goes. Richard, you know this in the broadcast world. So let's say good morning in my state to Mark in Arizona. Mark, you're on with both Richard Dugan and Katie Hesher. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, but I tell you what, I've been uplifted by Katie's story, and I think that she has to realize that sometimes people suffer and think God has something to do with it, but it's really the outcome is for her to help other people solve their problems.
Wow. Powerful.
And
Katie, Richard, this is we have people here that have a lot of focus on these subjects. Go ahead, please.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I have learned, and I haven't been around too many who have been on what's called the spectrum, but another observation is they are living in the now. They're not living in the past or the future. They may be the normal ones, if you will, because they're not. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you, Richard.
It's incredible. It really is, and I love the connection, Katie, that your son has to the divine, if you will, and that is, I love it. I'm trying everything I can to do the same thing.
Right, and I'd love to get that number if there's a direct connection, right, Richard and Katie? I mean, I've been searching all my life. You know, I'm not perfect by any means, nor is anybody, but it'd be nice. But you know what? Mark, before you go, I just wanted to bring up something here. There is a Latin phrase here, ladies and gentlemen, that I think is interesting, and I'll repeat it twice. Tribulatio ditat. Tribulatio ditat. In the simple English translation, how about this? Troubles make us stronger. And I think all of us would agree. That's an appropriate quote, but putting into action how we resolve those troubles. Mark, you get the last word to our two guests, and appreciate you. A Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Sure. Two things real quick. Vaccines have the habit of having arsenic and mercury and other impurities in. To get rid of those in your body, you have to get chelation from a naturopathic doctor. Secondly, one thing that would help people in the future, and even your son still, is peptides will work 100% better than anything you can ever imagine if you want to heal someone and clean out the brain. That's what they do. And so do your homework, everybody. God bless you, Steve, for what you're doing. Richard, Katie, you all keep up this story going. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you, Mark in Arizona. We appreciate you greatly, as everybody out there. We'll continue this conversation as we move toward the top of hour number 1 and conclude it into hour number 2, naturally, because the subject, Katie and Richard, is to me just mind-boggling, because what we were just talking about with callers, and of course you, ladies and gentlemen, have an opportunity at 1-800-848-9222 to get in on the conversation. Have you been a parent of an autistic child? Have you experienced difficulties that we're hearing with solutions that our special guest Katie is talking about here? And again, the main subject here, without being overly repetitive, the topic is the soul more than biology? What do we really know about this particular story? It is fascinating. The callers keep coming in, as we would expect, on this most powerful radio station, Talk Radio 77 WABC. Let's say good morning and get him in. Paul in Long Island. Good morning. How are you doing today?
Hey, how you doing? Thank you for taking my call. I have been listening to you for many years. I appreciate all that you've done for every subject that you talk to, which is a spectrum.
We try, and thank you so much. Appreciate it. Paul, continue if you're with us. Oh, okay. Well, that was a nice compliment. We appreciate that greatly. But Katie, this is the thing that I want to get to in more detail. I mean, we talk about the animals and how your son, it's amazing. It's like he was the magnet and the animals see something. And it's just so incredible that the research that needs to go into that, obviously, every day is like you look at the dog or look at a cat, all animals. They have a perception that goes well beyond the electromagnetic spectrum, as we talk about in science. More commentary from both of you as we close out in about 5 minutes here to the top of the hour. Please continue.
Well, their ability is so much more extraordinary than our ability to perceive. And the way they perceive is they perceive, whereas we see light, smell chemical, feel texture, and that's kind of how we process, taste a chemical as well. They perceive everything at once. They perceive the light that the sound makes, the smell that the sound makes, the smell that the action makes. And, one of your callers had briefly mentioned, or maybe it was you, was mentioning time. Or I think maybe it was Richard was mentioning time. And that's another thing that Houston has access to, is he said that the angels would open up windows in time and he could actually see different things happening in different areas of time.
That's amazing.
God isn't limited by time, like at all. That's something that is constructed for this materialistic realm where everything is matter, or not everything is matter. And this is the other thing that people need to understand about energy, is that energy and matter are actually the same thing, just measured in different ways. That's what E=mc² means.
Absolutely.
And when you recognize that, you recognize that the immaterial, the spiritual, is just as real as the physical. In fact, it's actually the source of the material.
You say it so well. And this is another addendum to this, too. Just as I was mentioning before, we see only 4% of the visible universe. That's called baryonic matter. I mean, not to get overly technical this early or this late in the evening for people on the West Coast. But the truth of the matter is exactly what we're talking about here. In the quantum world, it's so amazing that the animal, which seems so simple and is dependent on us to feed them for the most part as domestic animals, they have this ability to be way beyond the light curve. And if they have the ability, like your son is saying, and you've just told us, you've testified, that he absolutely had the ability to see into time. I mean, quantum physics is trying to figure that out, and maybe AI will help us, hopefully, not the dark side. But isn't that totally amazing, folks? So, Richard, you get the last word at the top of the hour. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're calling in, we certainly appreciate you. We'll guarantee to hold you over if we don't get to you in hour 1. So much more to talk about with Katie Asher and Richard Dugan. Richard, wrap it up. We got about a minute and a half, so you go to the top of the hour.
Well, thank you very much. And Katie, what I'm going to use this time to do is to invite you to be a guest on my program to continue this conversation. This is fascinating, not only from the informational aspect, but also from how what you are sharing, I do believe, is going to help us collectively to return to a more communicative, meaning community environment where we used to be. where we would communicate and talk. Dr. Sky talks about this on the program all the time, that there are several different forms of. And the bottom line is we dialogue. We talk about our experiences. We share them.
Dialogue.
And we
bet,
grow.
Richard. Mm-hmm. And the clock runs out here. But let me just mention one more thing here. And sorry to cut everybody off here. It's like I'm getting a solar flare effect through my headset for some reason. It's no fault of anybody. Our helmsmen are doing a yeoman's job of doing this. It's something in my equipment. But let me say this, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to the top of the hour, we will be talking more with our special guest, 1-800-848-9222. So much more to talk about, and we wish each and every one of you, ladies and gentlemen, peace and tranquility and happiness for this Christmas, Hanukkah season, and most definitely as we put our noses into, what? The year 2026. Let's all be positive, and we will be right back here on the Dr. Sky Experience.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
5 minutes after the hour, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for spending time with us, no matter where you're listening to the powerful signal of Talk Radio 77 WABC. Around the nation, around the world, and I'm sure well out into the cosmos. Our holiday edition, talking with you about some of the mysteries that go on in the world. Two very special guests during this program and a possible surprise guest at the bottom of this hour. We're speaking with Katie Asher, her and her son Houston, a book, The Book of Heaven, and also radio host Richard Dugan of Tell Me Your Story, continuing to talk about the mysteries and miracles that happen in our lives, and still no answers. Is it all science? No, it's something even more powerful, ladies and gentlemen. And those that have been waiting on the line of the Dr. Sky Experience, let's say good morning to Marianne in Indiana. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. How are you this morning?
Good. I am a recent survivor of a stroke victim who was a builder all his life. And he had a little bit of autism and everything. And we just did rehabilitation exercises and, always had good attitude and positive attitude. And he was going to get better. Unfortunately, God had other plans and took him away. But he had big stars in his eyes when he left, so I'm sure he was blessed. He was an artist and a building architect.
Yes, Marianne. Well, our thoughts and prayers for your loss and how people go through these different experiences. So let our guest respond, because Katie, all in time here, we're trying to figure out this, and science may not have the answer to what we call miracles, but Marianne's brought up some interesting stories of her own personal life.
Well, I think what everyone needs to understand is, even if you're just talking about basic understanding of science, that energy, the very first law of thermodynamics, is the law of conservation, which says that energy is neither created nor destroyed, it's only transferred. So if the spirit that was in the human body is no longer there, we know it is not lost. It is just somewhere else. So we know, even just by basic scientific laws, that the being, the energy, the spirit that was in that person is not gone. It is just somewhere else that we can't yet access. And so I want you to have complete hope. Mm-hmm. And that is what our message is about. It's about the hope that does not disappoint, the hope that is based in the Word of God, the hope that is absolutely the exact true nature of God, unchangeable.
Amazing. Marianne, did you want to add any more to the conversation? You've done a wonderful job explaining and sharing.
I pray to St. Monica. I'm Catholic, so I pray to St. Monica, and she was sort of an abused person by her mother and St. Augustine, and she kind of had to do all the work and take all the heat, the endurance. And she's the one that really inspired me, pray for a miracle every day.
Well, blessings to you and your family as we talk about things that hopefully one day will be commonplace. But for now, we discuss this as what the hope and the spirit of miracles and keep that alive. Thank you, Marianne. Blessings to you and a great happy holiday and a happy new year. Let's move on. I don't know if we went to Paul in Long Island. If we did, hello, Paul in Long Island. Good morning. You're on the air. Okay, I'm sorry, Pete in Staten Island. Excuse me. Go right ahead.
Hi, Dr. Sky. Very interesting, your show. When we're talking about with pets, I have a cat for about 8 years now, and I had from 9/11, I had cancer. I had a tumor in my kidney, and I was supposed to get it operated, and I didn't want to have them take my kidney out, so they did radiation, and they got it in. They were going to do 6 treatments. They got it in 3, and I'm in remission now. But my cat is the one who found it. My cat would actually go exactly where my kidney was and try to dig. And I would jump up and say, get away. But he was
amazing.
To dig it out. Yeah, and it was amazing. And I went to the doctor and told him they did a scan, and it was exactly where the scratch marks were. So these animals, they sense stuff like this.
That cat deserves a Nobel Prize. God bless you. You're in remission. Right.
He's got a nice, comfortable bed for himself in my home, and he's my buddy. Yeah,
Richard, maybe you want to comment on this because you also talk about the intersection of animals. We didn't hear a lot from you to talk with what Pete in Staten Island was talking about.
Well, that's the most amazing thing. As I said earlier about nature being our greatest teacher, animals are incredible. They're here to help us. And if we would only open ourselves up to their support, as Pete just said, and they have. As a matter of fact, we were watching the television series. I know it's an old one called the Big C, and in the hospital they had this beautiful white cat, a fluffy cat that was roaming the hospital, it was actually a senior citizen or a hospice area, and nobody liked the cat to come jump up on their bed because shortly after the cat jumped up on their bed, they died. But it was because the cat was able to sense the cancer, the dis-ease that was in the person, and knew that their time was coming to an end. Dogs, are incredible in the same fashion, and all kinds of other animals as well. So please stay aware of the animals that are around you. If they're your pets, you can't necessarily communicate in the same way that we are fairly well communicating here, but they're talking to us all the time. So
right, and Richard, what breaks my heart, and so many people who obviously are very in tune with their animals, is look at all the poor animals that are up for adoption in all these different locations. Like here in Arizona, every day the television, obviously doing what they can, and certain stations here are talking about the opportunity to come on down to help adopt an animal. But Pete in Staten Island, your story is most incredible, and blessings to you. That's amazing.
Well,
Pete, you have a last comment on this. Go right ahead.
My last comment
Could I add one thing to Pete?
Yeah, go right ahead. I'm sorry. Katie, please join the conversation.
Because I just wanted to validate what your experience is. And these non-speakers, we had someone who had cancer, and Houston walked right up to him and put his hand where the cancer was. And it's incredible. But what Houston explained is that, so again, all of these things, they're all energy, and they're diseases or they're conditions, and they give off frequencies, they give off energy. And because they're open to so much more of the energy, they can actually sense where these conditions are on the body, because they can see the differences in energy.
You're so right. Pete, please continue, and blessings to you that the animal, the cat, helped to identify the problem, and you're in remission. What a beautiful story.
Yes, thank you so much, and everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and Happy Hanukkah and everything that we celebrate. Let's enjoy life. Let's put it all in front of us instead of in back of us. We got to believe in God.
I'm giving you a big hug and a handshake, my brother, because isn't that amazing? You hear it all the time everywhere. Why can't we simply all just get along? Almost 8 billion people are running around this tiny little speck that Carl Sagan called the pale blue dot. This tiny little piece of solar driftwood. I sound a little bit too prosaic and poetic, but I think you'd agree, right, Pete? Why can't we all just get along?
I agree 100%.
There you go. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah. And let's continue the conversation. I think we have Joe in New Jersey. You've been patient. Good morning, Joe. How are you this morning?
Dr. Sky, good morning, and your wonderful guests and your helmsman. Merry Christmas. Thank you for taking my call, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
You got it, Dr. Sky. Dr. Sky, I got 4 miracles in my life. One, many more than that, but real quick, I know you got callers.
It's all right, go ahead. We want to hear it. Yeah.
I survived a deployment in the military. I was on a flight deck for 4 years, and I did 2 years in a hospital unit, and 6 years altogether, and God got me home. I believe the higher power, God the Father, got me back. 2, I got struck by lightning, and I survived it. I was in a backhoe, and the lightning bolt, it was like a cartoon. It came right inside the backhoe and blew up in front of my face. If it hit me direct, I wouldn't be here.
Oh, my gosh, that's incredible.
I was down for 9 months after that. I survived it. 3, I had an operation on my lower intestines for 4 hours. I survived that. It was a miracle. And I got stents in my heart, in the Widowmaker, 4 stents in my artery, and the surgeon said, I don't know how you survived this. You're 99% blocked. And
You're defying science, my friend. Joe, you're defying all the rules of science.
I believe it's the higher power, Dr. Sky.
Yeah, I agree.
God the Father.
Well, Katie, I think there's a person who's told and testified. It's amazing. I've never talked to anybody that's been struck by lightning, and that has testified that story. But Katie, amazing, isn't it, what we're hearing today?
It's incredible. And the thing is God is the healer. His name is Jehovah Rapha, the Lord who heals. And we do not need to give in to fear. The Lord says, fear not, just believe. And that is the main story behind our message, which is to believe that all things are possible if we believe. And if we change our mindset from one of fear and doubt and that hopelessness that I was so completely just mired in, and we shift it to the hope and the promises of the Word of God and recognize that He is the healer, that He is the provider, that He is the victor, that He completed everything for us on the cross. And to receive it, we believe, and faith is actual energy. It's actually thinking and believing, which thought is real energy. That's what happens. And thought becomes matter. When you realize the power of your thoughts to change your life, it should completely shift everything. And yes, we should be loving each other, and we should be believing in miracles. We should be expecting them. In fact, and I think Richard was talking about this in the beginning, is that, all the miracles that used to happen. And it even says the disciples, after Jesus had returned to heaven, it says in Acts that the disciples regularly performed miracles, as if it was this common everyday thing to occur. And that's where we need to get back to. And it only happens through faith, through belief.
You bet. You say it so well, and it's a very interesting story. And you were talking about energy. And Joe, if you're still with us, you know this. I mean, not to go off deep into the electrical world, but it's not the voltage, it's the amperage. So whatever you saw, there was probably a hell of a lot of amperage in there, but you're a survivor. And again, I want to thank you for your service to the United States and to the military. Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, let's continue as we have many callers calling in here on these subjects, the mysteries of miracles, what happens. Our very special guest, and just in case you're just joining us, no matter where you're listening, and we certainly appreciate you, Katie Asher and her son wrote a book called A Book of Heaven, a story of hope for the outcast, the broken, and those who lost faith. And Richard Dugan, a radio host, talking about these spiritual subjects and more, called Tell Me Your Story. Let's say good morning to Sandra in New Jersey. Sandra, good morning. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, all the good stuff. How are you?
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. First I wanted to say that I am reading Dr. Mark Siegel's book, The Miracles Among Us.
Yes, that's also one that I'd like to look at. Right.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to be hosting him at the Women's National Republican Club in January. So I'm listening to this lovely woman's story, and I'm realizing more and more and more how miracles really do happen. So it's very exciting. If you're in the right mindset, miracles will happen. But I wanted to share about the animals for a minute.
Please.
Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida, do you know what he's doing to the rescue dogs? He's making it a rule that every pet store has to take in some rescue dogs also. So that's a beautiful thing to know, that they're not left behind in shelters. Yeah, they're going to get a chance to be adopted. And then I wanted to say I have a cat, and whether it's good or not, I can't travel anywhere, because if I leave my cat alone, I believe he would die of a broken heart. So what am I supposed to do? So I don't travel. It's okay. I'm happy anyway. But that's a problem I have
look
with
at the peace and joy the cat brings to you, Sandra, right? I mean,
absolutely. I really
that's like your wingman or wing woman, if whatever the cat is a male or female. You don't want that out of your sight, right?
No, I love my cat, and I'm so happy with him in my life. And so that's how it goes. You know, you can't have it all. So I choose to be here for the cat.
Well, you know, it's a beautiful story, and that's what we try to do during the holidays. We're going to dispense with, obviously there's world situations and we care about them, but now we're talking about the mysteries. And not that my program's the only one that does this, but certainly we try to stay on measure. The Dr. Sky Experience, if you're a new listener out there in cyberspace and around the world, we try to talk about the great mysteries of the universe, whether they be in our realms, astronomy, space, aviation, weather. We have celebrity guests, and I'm always enamored because I did time with the military and I did time in law enforcement. We talk about what? American exceptionalism, the main credo and the things of the motto that you hear on this radio station, truth, justice, and the American way. Katie, that's a lot to say, but I think Sandra said it better than I've heard many people describe it. The love of animals, and you can't separate us from them. There you go.
That's beautiful.
It's amazing. Richard, your comment?
Well, I've had a lot of animals in my day, and cats, dogs, chickens. As a kid growing up at home, we had gerbils. We had birds, parakeets, and things of that nature. We currently have 3 sibling cats, all black, and love it. And I have to say that growing up, my father was not a big animal lover, so we did not have a lot. We didn't have dogs and cats in terms of let's get one. It was they would show up on our doorstep. We would care for it until it decided to leave or what have you. But for the last 40 or 45, 50 years, I've had animals in my life, and I wouldn't have it any other way. People used to tell me, God, they're so expensive. My dad used to say that. It's like, well, and as opposed to the expense of having to deal with poor health without having them, because it's been proven scientifically that as like dogs and cats will help to lower your blood pressure and many, many other things, as well as identifying sicknesses in facilities. So if you can, please have some, even a fish. My wife and I cried over the death of an angelfish we had for a short time. That's how connected we are to animals.
Okay, it's a beautiful story. And, as we talk about this, Katie, I find it fascinating. But I want to do justice to your book here. Tell people out there how they can get in touch with you. I mean, we can go to buy the book at places like Amazon and other good places where books are sold. What's the website for you? Tell us your website.
Yes, you can definitely buy it on Amazon. We have a website called Asher.house, where it's basically not just references to what's in the book, but also resources for parents who have a non-speaking child. And I give all of the different things that I've used to help Houston that I referenced in the book. I actually give sources and all of that information, videos about the different exercises that we do to help as well. And then I have asher.house.hope, and that's actually the Gmail at gmail.com. Okay. And then at Asher House Hope are the handles on TikTok and Instagram, and then KT Asher5 on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now.
Well, say that again, the last one that you just mentioned. Give us that again.
K, the letter K, and then T, Asher, and then the number 5.
Also, let me bring to the conversation, if you don't mind, you also have something called the telepathy tapes. What's the involvement there? Yeah. That's important.
So the telepathy tapes, whenever I came out with our book, I was able to get in touch with one of these scientists who was researching this phenomenon, and she had just been corresponding with a documentary filmmaker, and that project became the Telepathy Tapes podcast, which is now going to be a documentary next spring. And what it does is it highlights these incredible gifts of non-speakers, at least in season 1. That's the main focus. And Houston is introduced in episode 3. And then by the time you get to episode 9, something absolutely astonishing and supernatural happens. And I don't want to tell so that everybody can listen themselves. And, and then in episode 10, in episode 10, you get to hear from non-speakers themselves about the different things that they would like to see change in society.
Well, we want to say this to the audience out there. Again, thank you. Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Happy New Year. But I'm going to say this. I want you two to stay with us to the top of the second hour here. But we may have a special guest coming in also talking about miracles in a slightly different way, but we'll see if that happens. But if not, we'll continue on, ladies and gentlemen, here. 1-800-848-9222. Stories that are amazing. And I like to use this time as everybody out there who emails me, the ones we get, and we do get a number of them. They say, hey, how about the Sky Report, Dr. Sky? You talk about what's in the heavens. So here we go. This is your Christmas, New Year, holiday Sky Report. We welcome you to go to the Dr. Sky Experience at WABCRadio.com. And what you'll find, ladies and gentlemen, is a brand new pre-recorded iteration of what's going on in our January skies. But for those of you that do not have that capability now, we ask you to stay with us and don't leave us until maybe the top of the hour. And then never leave us. Continue on 24/7 on Talk Radio 77 WABC. What's in the sky right now? If you look across the nation, if your skies are clear, more so to the western United States right now, you see this object high up into the southeast, moving higher. It's the planet Jupiter. And for the rest of us on the East Coast, if you have clear skies, obviously a little bit colder, we imagine, you'll see that nearly to the overhead point. And that's Jupiter, the massive god of gods to the ancients and the Romans and the Greeks. It is a most important planet. We have spacecraft that are going there right now to identify what might be under the oceans of one of those satellites called Europa. And if you're a big fan of sci-fi, 2001, Kubrick's epic, 2001, A Space Odyssey, and 2010, the sequel. In 2010, they say that is the artificial intelligence or the alien intention of its own iteration of life out in the universe said, do not touch Europa. So who knows what lies under the oceans of the satellite of Jupiter, which we call Europa. And that's fascinating. You can see that Jupiter now about some 400 million miles away, best on the January 10th date. And folks, if you have a telescope, you need to look at that. If you got one for the holidays or you're getting one, you're not supposed to know that. But the truth is, when you look at Jupiter, you will see what Galileo observed back on January 7th of 1610, when, to much of his people in that government of Italy at the time said, you're not supposed to say that things move around like the sun. The Earth's the center of the universe, and we know it's not. Galileo found those two objects, then two more, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. Amazing moons. Interesting stuff, don't you think, Katie and Richard? What say you? We got about a minute.
Well, Houston has a lot to say about space. So, and some incredible visions as well. And what he describes is, and really even Christ talks about how the stars are a sign of the times, and he even says that in Genesis as well. And so I think all of these things, there's nothing that's outside of God's control or outside of his message, which is that he's creator and he created us to be a part of his life and his world and to be like him, which is love.
Beautiful story, ladies and gentlemen. We'll continue with our special guests, Katie Asher and Richard Dugan, and you at 1-800-848-9222. Maybe a special guest, and we'll hope that happens. But if not, we'll carry the torch on the Dr. Sky Experience as we move toward the end of this year with great hope and promise for 2026. We will be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It is said long ago that children from around the world would wake up on Christmas Day and find to their delight the gift of toys. The generosity from a man named Claus. But Claus thought that none of the children would ever know where the toys came from, and that being okay with him. But his kindly deeds that made so many children happy would carry to far lands and not go unrecognized. So for miles and miles in every direction, people were talking of Claus and his wonderful gifts to children. The sweet kindness of his work would remind folks of their respect for a man so gentle-natured that he loved to devote his life to pleasing the helpless little ones. Therefore, the inhabitants of every city and village had been eagerly watching for the coming of Claus. Stories of beautiful playthings were told to the children to keep them patient and contented. When, on the morning following the trip of Claus with his deer, the little ones came running to their parents with the pretty toys they had found, and asked from whence they came, there was but one reply to the question. The good Claus must have been here, my darlings, for his are the only toys in all the world. But how did he get in? Asked the children. At this, the fathers shook their heads, being themselves unable to understand how Claus had gained admittance to their homes. But the mothers, watching the glad faces of their dear ones, whispered that the good Claus was no mortal man, but assuredly a saint, and they blessed his name for the happiness he had bestowed upon the children. A saint, said one with bowed head, has no need to unlock doors if it pleases him to enter our homes. And from then on, when a child was naughty or disobedient, its mother would say, you must pray to the good Santa Claus for forgiveness, for naughty children will receive no more pretty toys. But Santa Claus himself would not have approved this speech. You see, he brought toys to the children because they were little and helpless, and because he loved them. He knew that the best of children were sometimes naughty, and that the naughty ones were often good. It's the way with children the world over. And that is how our Claus became Santa Claus and enshrined himself as a saint in the hearts of the people. 34 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, now we take the bold attempt at reaching somebody that I find most fascinating. You may have never really been introduced to him yourself personally, but through the vast array of Talk Radio 77 WABC Space Satellite Network, we now go to the North Pole. And if the lines are open and properly done here, which I'm sure our helmsmen have done, we say good morning to Santa in the North Pole. Santa, are you with us on the Dr. Sky Experience?
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas, Dr. Sky. I am certainly with you tonight.
How about that? Give us a weather forecast up there. I mean, the sun's not shining right now because we're right about the time of the winter solstice, so it must be very cold up there.
Yeah, that's right. Dark and cold.
Unbelievable.
And we're right on the solstice, like you say. The days will get longer starting tomorrow, right?
That's amazing. And just to prove that you really are Santa, give us your best ho, ho, ho again so everybody on this radio station can hear it loud and clear.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas! Ho, ho, ho.
Wow, it sounds authentic to me. Santa, we have on the line Katie Asher. She, of course, is an author of a book called The Book of Heaven, and also a good friend of ours, Richard Dugan, a radio host too, talks about Tell Me Your Story. But while we have you on the line here, I just am so interested about this. You know, the technology has changed, Santa, from the old days. Talk about the new technology with your sleigh, because I understand you're using some very experimental, type of engines. Would you describe how this works? Or maybe you can't, because that would reveal too much.
Yeah, there are some secrecy boundaries that I might get in trouble with some of the governments, I suppose, if I expose. But I've been listening in here to Katie and Richard, and I have to tell you that their stories, have been amazing, and the callers' stories, and I just love this because doing what I do, which of course we all know about all the deliveries, and a few days from now I'll be doing that, but so much of the time for me is also spent visiting people, especially this time of the year, and very often that includes people in retirement homes and things like that. And when I hear these stories of how God is affecting people and animals being sensitive to these illnesses and so forth, and all the other good things that they bring into our lives. And it so reminds me of so many of my experiences where I've been. We just had one last weekend where a gentleman with Alzheimer's and his daughter really wants me to come and speak to her dad. And and her mom is right there, and I go over and give him a ho ho ho, and he just lights up. And the daughter and his wife just start crying. They're just tears streaming down their face. It's the first time he's expressed that kind of emotion in a very, very long time. And it is just so true, and it's so important at this time of the year we do stop and think about the impact that is in our life, the miracles that do occur, and through so many different sources. So I just love hearing this.
Well, Santa, I have a couple of questions here, and I want to get Katie and Richard and the listeners in there. 1-800-848-9222. We'll keep you to the top of the hour because I know you're so busy. But help us out. In the summertime, it's kind of a slow time for Santa. What do the elves do? Or are they still working production 24/7 all year round? Tell us.
Well, yeah, we are. It's a big operation, right? So they're busy. They're working away. The beauty of it is when you have a good team, I am free to travel a bit. So I Mrs. Claus and I will be around the country and around the world. So it's good to have a great team. And like I tell the kids, the beauty of the elves is there's no procrastination. They like to do everything that needs to be done, and then a little bit more for good measure. That's what they call it. A little bit more for good measure, And so we're ahead of schedule. I was telling somebody earlier today that we could actually deliver presents tomorrow. We're ahead of schedule at that level. We're not going to, of course, but we could. And that's the beauty of when you get things done and then do a little bit more.
And Amazon could take a lesson from you guys. Up there, Amazon, of course, doing so great, and the other companies out there. But, boy, you're kind of like the pioneer in this. But let me get Katie and Richard in on this. Katie, say hi to Santa, because he rocks, and he's doing his job, and it's overtime coming up here pretty soon. Say hi.
Hi, Santa, and thank you so much for all the joy that you bring all the kids everywhere.
Oh, well, thank you, Katie. And I so appreciate what you've done, taking the time and the effort to memorialize your stories in the book and all you've done. So thank you for that.
And Richard, did you say you don't believe in Santa, or am I incorrect?
Hey. Don't you dare put words in my mouth, pal. Hey, he's provided me with probably one of the greatest Christmas gifts I will ever receive that I got this year, and I got it a little early, Santa. And thank you for this new house.
Yes, wow. Yes, I love that.
And by the way, speaking of miracles, if anybody was to do some evaluating back in the August of this past summer and looked at the real estate market, look at the economy, and the whole list goes on of all of that stuff, and Katie, you would probably agree, not a great time to buy a house, and yet, guess what? Miracle of all miracles.
Miracles do happen. There you go.
That's right.
They do. They do.
You know, Santa, we have you for
house
just...
too, so I know how those, where you think it's totally impossible, and yet this grand gift comes anyway, and that's just the wonder of miracles.
You know, Santa, let me ask you a question. You know, everybody out there wants to know. There's so-called a lot of these Santa copies that are out there. I mean, was there a school that was set up after this? I mean, you're the originator of this, but do you sanction other schools? Because do you need help, or you can handle the load? You don't have to worry.
Yeah, no. What we did, because there's helpers, and you know, all the children know this, and their parents, of course. But I have helpers around the world, and we put together a thing we call the Worldwide Santa Claus Network, where the helpers can get some training, and of course part of the rules is when a child asks, "Are you the real Santa?" We can never say yes or no to that. You say, "Do you think I'm the real Santa?" You know, we let it be a mystery. But yeah, we have thousands and thousands of helpers around the world who just love what they do, love spreading the Christmas spirit. We define the Christmas spirit as love in action. Love is a verb, and yeah, it's an amazing thing that we have all these people, young and old, even ladies who portray Santa Claus. So we have a lot of helpers all around the world. It's an amazing group.
Well, it's amazing. In A Christmas Story, I know I don't think you were that Santa. I think there was another Santa in that one. But it's amazing how that movie has reached the epitome. That's an incredible movie. We encourage people to watch it. It's actually a lot of fun. And I think it was actually narrated. Somebody helped me on this in Radioland out there, that the actual voiceover for that Christmas Story was a radio host named Gene Shepard. So I think that's true, too. But what an amazing movie that was to get everybody excited about some interesting stories about Christmas and also you.
Well, I tell you, I can tell you so many. Within the network, every year we hear hundreds and hundreds of stories of Santa, the impact that Santa's had, and people with special needs, and how they and people who speak for the first time in a long time, and just that connection, because Santa Claus is such a powerful avatar of goodness that gets ingrained in us at such an early age, and it just seems to me that as people age, and there's that anchor back to Santa Claus. And again, I very, very often the result is I don't know how you describe it any other way other than miraculous. It's just amazing.
Miracles. That's it, Santa.
Miracles happen.
And you know what? We got to take a break here, Santa. So I hope you're able to stay with us up there in the North Pole. I know it's pretty much, well, we didn't get a full weather forecast, but I heard it was somewhere about 15 below zero. With a wind, a stiff wind out of what direction? Because you don't know. Every direction is, well, zeroed out at the North Pole. But we will be right back with our special guest, Santa, at the North Pole with Katie Asher, Richard Dugan, and you, ladies. If you have a quick question for Santa, it's 1-800-848-9222, talking about the miracles. And this one is a miracle about Santa. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Miracles are not contrary to nature, but only contrary to what we know about nature. A quote from a man a long time ago, St. Augustine. 47 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, we're privileged and honored to speak with Santa at the North Pole due to a complex series of satellites that are here with WABC. Talk Radio 77 WABC, and we're getting a good signal as we go back to Santa. Santa, thank you for joining us. I have some technical questions and something that I think people would want to know about. So are you ready for these questions?
Yes, Dr. Sky.
There you go. You know, Santa, you've moved from the old analog technology, and you know you can't reveal the propulsion system because that would be against national security or international security. But how about this? Every year we watch something from NORAD, you know those guys, And we have this NORADSanta.org. So tell us about that in case people don't know about it, so friends and everybody in your family can watch you take off. It's amazing with those reindeers. They must be powered by nuclear propulsion. Tell us about NORADSanta.org.
Well, the NORAD technology is amazing. And I was asked just earlier tonight, I was on a Zoom call with a couple of youngsters in Hawaii, and they brought up NORAD, and they said, now, I don't see how it's possible because those numbers go so quickly. I don't see how you can be in all these different places, delivering presents that quickly. And I explained to them, and I'll explain to your listeners, that there is something that happens that I almost feel like I'm in more than one place at one time. It's like I'm in, dozens or perhaps hundreds of homes making the deliveries at the same exact moment. And again, it's unexplainable, like so many miracles are. But that's the way it feels to me. And when I get home, it was almost like a dream. It's like I just don't understand how any of it worked. But I know the miracle happened. The deliveries were made. Families are happy. They wake up to the gifts. It's an amazing.
Well, you and your team probably deserve an Academy Award, my friend, for this. But I got a more personal question, and I'm only making fun of myself in a lighthearted way. During the holidays, I tend to get a little round around my equator. And the thing I want to ask you is, what is the secret? Now, chimneys, well, that's not the only way to get into a house, but what do you do? I mean, is there some kind of waste reduction device that you have that helps you slide down there? And then the last question I will ask, and I'll turn it over to our esteemed guests here. Well, what's now the favorite that you want from people to leave you something to eat? What's the new current snack? I mean, the old one we know about. So to describe, how do you fit down the chimney? And what the heck do you enjoy? Because it's counterproductive. You're trying to slim down, and now they leave you food.
Correct. That is so true. It's a molecularization, kind of like the Star Trek technology. So it's not I'm deassembled, I guess, and reassembled. I don't know how else to put that. Again, the science on so much of this is just beyond me. But it goes. That's the way it works. I'm a toy maker at heart, and so much of this stuff, right? But on to the snacks now. A few years ago, I kind of shifted the emphasis on the cookies. As people asked, they would say, "What's your favorite?" And I tended to say, at first it was chocolate chip, and then I thought, well, everywhere has the chocolate chips, and they were great, but you need a little variety. So then I'd mix it up and say some oatmeal raisin cookies; those would be good. But now, you see, I wised up. It took me a while, but finally, what I'm doing now is I'm saying, whatever is your favorite, if you'd leave that out for me, I'd really appreciate it, because then I get a wide variety. And now here's what happened. Not only do I get a wide variety of cookies now, some people are leaving out slices of pizza.
I love cold pizza. I don't care. I can even eat cold pizza. I love that.
I'm right there with you. Yeah. So it's
Santa,
in pretty amazing ways. Yes.
You're an amazing guy, and I want to leave an opportunity for Katie and Richard, if you have a moment, comment or question, because we got to wrap up the show here. But it's an honor to have Santa here with us. It's so incredible because you're so busy up at the North Pole. It's NORADSanta.org for his journeys. Katie, your last comment about anything to do with Santa. Please continue.
Yes. Believe. Believe in miracles. Wow. Believe in Santa. Believe.
And Richard,
thank you.
Your turn.
Well, now, Santa, I am bald by choice, but I also have a beard, so I only have one question for you, man. Who cut your hair, man?
Well, I'll tell you this. It sounds like you're a candidate. I'd say go over to santashelpingsantas.com, get a bunch of free resources, and we might just find you as a helper.
That's incredible.
I'm open to it.
Santa, we have one more comment, at least from me, and I make many comments as the host, but here, hope the people enjoy these shows, and that's the hope we have for the 2026, of course. Great guests coming. But here, you're a man who's earned your way. I mean, it's just amazing. You've probably amassed, and it's none of my business, considerable amount of wealth doing this, but it's not your main motivation. But you hang out a lot of times in Beverly Hills and Hollywood and the Los Angeles area. So tell people, how do they get in touch with you? And if they really want to get a response from Santa, now I'm going to cause the post office a lot of grief here, but go ahead.
Well, the easy way is over at ZoomSanta.com. Zoom, very simple, ZoomSanta.com. But I'll bring up one other thing. There has been, I think, a real lack of taking a young believer, somebody who believes in all the goodness that Santa Claus represents, and then they get to a certain age and say, is Santa Claus really real? And then they fall into a void. The parents aren't clear on how to answer. We've created this year a thing called the Golden Christmas. And of course, it's at thegoldenchristmas.com. You need but thegoldenchristmas.com. And we have all the tools so that parents can now help their children see Santa Claus not as a soloist, but as a choir, right? Because that's what Santa Claus really is a choir. And so we put together some great resources to help parents answer that question when it gets asked. And again, it's very easy over at thegoldenchristmas.com, and it's all free.
Santa, do your best, and it always is good. We got to hear that ho, ho, ho again, so people out there, don't forget to believe in the spirit of Christmas. You got the floor, Santa.
Thank you. And Richard, thank you. Katie, thank you. Dr. Sky and the Dr. Sky Experience, of course, thank you. And everybody have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Santa. We appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen. Katie, on a serious note, thank you so much for giving us your testimony about the Book of Heaven, a story of hope for outcasts, the broken, and those who've lost faith, with your son, Houston. Your last closing comment, and then we'll go to Richard, because the clock rules, and all we can say to everybody is, well, we just obviously want to believe in miracles, not by force, but by experience. Katie, you have the floor on this.
I want everyone to remember that God is love, and we are to love each other, and we are to believe him, and that is what he's called us to do. And so it's my hope this Christmas that you believe in him, and that I used to believe in God, now I believe God. I take him at his word. And that's what I want all of you to do this Christmas. Believe him for everything he promised us.
That's amazing, Katie Asher. And all the best to your son, because let me say this to you, and I mean this sincerely from my heart. That's an amazing story of your life, and people should go ahead and look at the book, get the copy of the book, so you can see the struggles that you have been through, and also the story of Houston. We appreciate you. God bless you. And a Merry Christmas to you, and a Happy New Year. I hope we do this again, and by all means we should. So thank you, Katie Asher.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thank you. Richard Dugan, you're a pro. We got about a minute and a half. You got the floor. Thank you for being part of this.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be a part of it, and I would actually extend what Katie said to folks. Spend some time going within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place, and listen to and follow the promptings of that quiet, that still, small voice. I call it my friend. Has never ever let me down, never put me in harm's way, has challenged me, but it has been worth it. And sometimes it's just a word of inspiration or encouragement. Sometimes it is guidance. So I encourage you, especially at this time of the year, to spend time listening to that still small voice. And Merry Christmas to everyone, and a joyous and prosperous and abundant and happy New Year.
And how do they get in touch with you, Richard? One more time, if you didn't give it. I guess we lost Richard. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up the show, here's a quote, and I think it's very apropos to end this particular Dr. Sky, experience iteration. Where there is great love, there are always miracles. And another quote, a miracle is a shift in perception from fear to love. Very important subjects. And ladies and gentlemen, we look to positivity to 2026. We'll continue with our main themes. Great guests from the realms of astronomy, space, aviation, weather, celebrity guests. We have many, and we won't tell you right now who they are, but I'm sure you'll recognize them instantly as you hear many of the promos that people have done for this particular type of show over the years, and, ladies and gentlemen, stories of American exceptionalism. I want to thank owner and operator John Katzimatidis and his entire family, and from the executive staff, Chad Lopez, for permitting me to sit behind this microphone, ladies and gentlemen, for this duration as we continue to expand our minds. And with the popularity that you tell us, we can only hope for a promise of 2026 with an even greater experience about these mysteries of the unknown. And you can get in touch with me. Not always that when we say we'd like to recommend and have you recommend some guests, drsky@wabcradio.com. That's my email, and I promise I always respond back and do it as quickly as I can. You know, ladies and gentlemen, stand by as we pass the torch of conversation now to TJ McCormick for another iteration of The Other Side of Midnight. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you next week for more exciting information on a journey of opening our minds here on the Dr. Sky Experience. And thank you, Tony and Bill. It wouldn't happen without you two as our great helmsman. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Dr. Sky Experience. You can hear the Dr. Sky Experience Saturday mornings, midnight to 2 a.m. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.